Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. I'm Sonnet, the owner and creator behind Sonnet's Garden Blooms. And in today's video, you guys are getting a thrift to treasure, but not any thrift to treasure. I have released my maker's box, and with the box comes a specific video using all the items in that box. So even if you did not get a maker's box, definitely still watch this video for a ton of inspiration. So let's go ahead and do a little unboxing of the items that you're gonna find in the box. And then we're gonna do a bunch of projects creating with the items that I've included in that box as well. So let's get started. Having the subscription of the Maker's Box each and every month, this beautiful box, I love it, will show up on your doorstep. So let's take a look at what is included in the June box. When you open up your box every month, what you're gonna find inside is first and foremost a list of what's included. So you have that. You know the names of all the papers. I also have a bit of inspiration on here for you. So you'll get a postcard in every box. The next thing you're gonna see is you're going to see a little bit of a thank you. And this is when it's gonna feel like opening a gift on Christmas morning. So you're gonna be able to take a peek then at what's in it. After you tear it open, what you're gonna find is 2 Roycycled Decoupage papers, 2 the painted photographer papers, and then some paints. So first, let's talk about the papers. The first one from Royce is a Masterboard, and I'm gonna open this up later in the video, but you guys, when Royce created this for me, I was so excited. It is full of everything that I love. Birds, beautiful fonts, bunch of different botanicals, butterflies. I loved it all, and I love the vibrant colors, along with it has a bit of neutral to it as well. So that is the Masterboard, and actually it is called Bird's Masterboard. So that is the first Roycycled paper. The second one is called Summer Landscape, and this one, you guys, is absolutely gorgeous. Now, I know that many of you think you have to use a landscape to create maybe like a picture, but keep in mind, landscapes can be used for small pieces as well. It can be used on furniture, so it could be used in your mixed media. So often you're looking at layering, and you can do that with that landscape. Then Connie from the Painted Photographer, you guys, she knows how much I love gardening and botanicals. And she, asked me a little bit about, my collections and things like that. And I told her I loved watering cans. So when she hand drew this image, it's absolutely outstanding. So, there you have it. It's like a vintage watering can with a bunch of different flowers. And one of my favorite all-time flowers is the purple coneflower. And I was like, did she read my mind? I love adding purple coneflowers to my landscape, and so it was absolutely perfect that it was in this. Now, with Connie's papers, the nice thing about this is that if you would want to just add it into a beautiful frame, you can do that. So you can cut it down and then add it to whatever frame that you have. Or you can just add it to all different small pieces, and I'm gonna show you what I did in today's video with her papers. So that is the first one. The other thing I asked her to do, because I love her papers so much, is that I did ask her to create a second piece, and that way these can be used on smalls. And here are 2 different, like a 5x7, and I think, what is a 5x7 cut in half, but then 2 of those. So many projects can be completed with these two papers. Next up, the paints. Okay, first and foremost, let's talk about the Sweet Pickins milk paint. I chose In a Pickle, and this has been a color that I have been wanting to dabble with since I saw it. If you don't already, go over and follow Sweet Pickins milk paint on Facebook. Oh my gosh, the inspiration over there is amazing. And when I first started offering it, I went over there and there was a dresser done in a pickle, and I loved it. So I thought that would be so appropriate to kick off the first subscription box with one of the colors that I wanted to try. And guess what? You guys get to as well. Now, two of the fusion colors, I chose Cast Iron, a really beautiful neutral, and it's got like just a hint of gray to it. I love it. The other color is called Prairie Sunset, and this is a beautiful summer yellow that you can use definitely into fall, and I love it. So I thought it was a perfect opportunity to step out of your comfort zone and try maybe a color that you would not. Now, the DIY paint, and this is another one that I felt like is underutilized in the DIY world. It is called Kissing Booth. And so when Debbie Beard was on my live the other day, she uses pink all the time, or Kissing Booth all the time. She also wears pink all the time. So it was really funny when I asked her, like, what is your favorite color? And then she said Salty Kiss, which is actually green. But I always have thought that Kissing Booth was her favorite color. So I'm gonna show you how I am using Kissing Booth in today's video as well. The other color is Weathered Wood, you guys. And when I first started offering DIY paint, I noticed it was a real hot seller for me. And I thought, if everyone else is using it, I have to try it. And I did, and let me tell you, this has definitely been one of my go-to like neutral colors for a lot of different things. It's really rich and beautiful. So those are the 5 colors, and then the special gift, or like the special add-on, I included a little whisk so you guys can whisk up your milk paint this month. Now next month it's going to be completely different. So that's what was included in the maker's box this month. Let's go ahead and now get started on today's video. For project 1, I was thrifting at the local Goodwill and I came upon this. It was actually tucked under one of the rackings and it caught my eye right away. But the top, you guys, it was ripped off. So I wish it wasn't. I would have probably sold it as is, but it was $12.99 and I knew I could definitely transform it into something absolutely beautiful. For starters, the top underneath this decoupage paper was in really good shape. Maybe under the rest it wasn't, but the portion that is showing, I don't know why they decided to cover it up. So I am taking my misting bottle and I am going to try to remove it. And honestly, once I misted it and then I used my scraper, it came right off. Many of the areas I just had to let the water soak into the paper. Once the paper absorbed the water, then I was able to scrape it off. I then took a little scrubbing pad and scrubbed away any of the excess paper around the edge, and voila, we were ready to go. Here is the little scrubby pad I was talking about. I believe they are from 3M, and you guys, these, I take them and I chop them in half and then I chop them again and I create these little tiny little scrubbing pads, and let me tell you, they work perfect for getting stickers off, and like this, getting like the paper residue off. It came off perfectly and it didn't even scratch the top. Now it's time to tackle these 3 drawers. The first question, do I try to reuse the knobs? I quickly determined that I think I can use them in my vision of what I'm trying to accomplish here. Plus, knobs are super expensive, you guys. So I always try to reuse and repurpose. Now to remove the paper, initially I was going to use the water scraper technique, but the paper on the drawers were on a whole lot better than the top. So I took my hand sander and a really heavy grit sandpaper, and it came off like butter. Here it is, summer landscape. Oh my gosh, you guys, is this not absolutely gorgeous? I love it. It reminds me of like a Monet painting. For starters, what I plan on doing is taking White Swan and painting all 3 drawers White Swan. I really want that summer landscape to pop off the drawers. So I really liked their vision with how they had the front of the drawers with the decoupage paper. I just felt like it was a little dark. So what I'm doing is I am putting White Swan underneath, and that really makes your paper pop. I didn't necessarily have to do this if I wanted the paper to blend, but because I want it to pop, I'm just applying 1 even coat of White Swan, then we're going to apply that paper. All 3 drawers are now dry. I'm applying the paper over it to try to determine what I want to cut off. And let me tell you guys, Wisconsin has been extremely cold, and today was a very warm day. So I was trying to take advantage of the warm weather and just spend some time outside versus always being inside. This is not a project you want to do outside, I've decided. So if you're working with decoupage paper and there's any wind, even the slightest, go inside and work with it, because my husband was on the other side of the driveway laughing because the paper kept on blowing every which way. So I cut off this chunk and I'm going to set that aside for a totally different project. The great thing about Royce's papers is that they're so large. Many times you can use them on multiple projects, or the large piece for one huge project. My initial vision is I had all the drawers right next to each other, and I was going to decoupage all 3 drawers at once, and then that changed. But what I'm doing here is I'm using liquid patina, and because the drawers are fairly small, I'm applying an even coat of liquid patina to the entire drawer. Typically, I like to do what's called a starter strip, and that gives you better control over your decoupage. Now, I am also using my misting bottle, and this was suggested by Royce from Roycycled Papers. She mist the paper, and it actually activates all the fibers, and it allows you to eliminate a lot of those wrinkles. So it helps you spread that paper out. And then I just take my paintbrush and I continue to spread out and rub out any wrinkles that may happen. Typically this is a lot easier when there's not wind. As you can see, the paper is flopping. It's still all worked out. But when this started happening, this is when my vision changed. I came up with the idea I was going to take a scissors and I was going to slice it. And unfortunately, what happened was it ripped the paper a little bit. Anytime decoupage paper is wet, it has the tendency to rip if it's pulled. So the first drawer I set aside, and then the second drawer I cut and then applied that piece. Even though I had that cut in between each of the drawers, I still think once I put all the drawers in, it looked pretty seamless. And I am loving how this is already looking on the front of the drawers. I think it just brightens it up with all the florals and the bright colors, and it looks just amazing. Next, we're going to mix up the Sweet Pickins milk paint. This one is called In a Pickle, and if you haven't used Sweet Pickins yet, it's super easy, guys. It's just a 50-50 ratio, and honestly, I think I had a little bit more water in here than paint. I probably should have added a little bit more, but I spilled a little bit when I was trying to measure it. Again, doing this outside in the wind was probably not the best solution. So anyways, I wanted to use the entire container, and I filled up the cup about once and like 1.5. So I added about 1.5 cups water as well, or like the little measuring cup there. And once you do that, the key then is to really mix it up. And so I included a little whisk inside the maker's box. So whisk it up, and it really helps alleviate a lot of clumps, and it works out just perfect. So once you mix this all up, like I said, I whisk it really, really well, and then I let it sit for approximately 10 minutes, and then whisk it again, and then it's set to use. And look at this beautiful green, you guys. I'm loving it already. Now that it's sat for roughly 10 minutes, I just took my brush, and again, I whisked it, and then I took my brush and I just, again, swiped it around, or like really mixed it with the brush. And then I went in and I started painting. Now, a couple things that if you want more crackle goodness, you can zap it with a heat gun when it's drying, and that will create the milk paint. It will help like create that crackly look. But I really wanted to see how this would work with just all on its own. I didn't add any extra bond, anything like that. So if you're worried about a piece where you think you're going to get a lot of chippiness, if it's really glossy or what have you, you can add a product called Extra Bond, and that will help alleviate a lot of the extra chippiness. Some people don't want it to be chippy, and so the Extra Bond will prevent that. If you want to have specific areas that have a lot of crackle, Sweet Pickins does have a crackle medium as well, or like I said, you can do it very naturally by zapping it with a heat gun. I was, again, outside enjoying just the beautiful day in Wisconsin, so I wanted this to be just all natural. So what I did is I applied one even coat to the entire piece, let it dry, came back, and I added a second coat. Well, that's all drying. I'm going to take my piece of sandpaper, and I am going to remove the excess paper on here. So in a downward motion, I'm going around, I'm removing all the excess paper, and I'm doing that to all 3 drawers. After I get done with that, I then go back with my liquid patina, and I add another coat of liquid patina to the entire piece. After the piece is dry, then you want to take sandpaper and sand your entire piece. I took my hand sander, and apparently I had not hit record. So this is what it looked like after I sanded the entire piece. I love how that blue came out from underneath. And now I'm going to seal the milk paint, and I am using the dark oil wax from Sweet Pickins. And I just love the dark oil wax. There is clear, dark, black, or white. And the key here is you want to apply a nice even coat of the dark oil wax and let it sit for about 10 minutes, and then wipe it off, and then let it dry. And it just really adds a bit of richness to the paint. Now I waited 10 minutes and I'm going in with just a piece of paper towel and I am wiping away all the excess oil. And like I said, it's an oil wax, so this is combustible. So dispose of your rags properly. Do not put the rags in a plastic bag. It can combust and then cause a fire. So just be aware of that. I also added it to the very top and I just think it looks absolutely amazing. For project 2, I am breaking into the 2 colors of DIY that come in the maker's box. The first one we're going to use is Kissing Booth, and I am taking just an old ball jar. I typically find these in big boxes at Goodwill, and they'll have like a dozen or 15 for like $3.99, or sometimes the most I've paid is like $5.99. And I grab them and I upcycle them for all different purposes. So today we are applying 2 even coats of Kissing Booth to this container, and I'm going to let it dry in between coats. I do zap it with a heat gun to really move the process along, but already I am loving the color. So after it's been painted twice and I've let it dry, I am just doing a little bit of wet distressing, and I do this over all the raised areas. So I just take a damp rag and then I just rub ever so gently over all the raised areas around the rim as well, and then just randomly here and there just to make it look a little aged and worn. After it redries, I'm using Big Top and I am going to completely seal the entire ball jar. Anytime you're using DIY paint, it can be reactivated with any type of water. So you'll want to seal it with either a top coat or a wax. So what I decided to do is seal it with Big Top, let it dry, and then I'm going to come back and I'm going to show you what we're going to add to this. Here are Connie's 2 papers that are included in the maker's box. This one, the big one, we're gonna play around with that a little bit later, but this sheet has 5 by 7, and then I think it's like 3.5 by 2.5 maybe is the size of the other 2. We are going to take one of the small ones and we are going to put that on the jar. I love how Connie was able to create multiple sizes, so you can use this image on all different projects. It's perfect for like this ball jar, for instance. You can put it on books. You can just put them directly into a really cute picture frame. They're perfect for mixed media, layering with different papers. So what I'm doing here is I'm taking a bit of water and a fine tip paintbrush, and I am going to just outline the area where I want to tear it. Rice paper has fibers built in. It makes it a bit stronger than your standard 18-pound tissue paper. So I'm going around the entire perimeter, I'm adding the water, and then I'm going to tear it just to make it look a little bit more natural and not such a crisp, clean edge.
Here's what it looks like. Now what we're going to do is we're going to paint the back white. And this is really going to make it pop off of the kissing booth jar. And I learned this technique from from Roycycled Decoupage paper and Lexi Grenzer. Both of them did a workshop and they talked about, typically you would paint your item and then apply the decoupage paper. In this circumstance, I can't paint the I can't paint the actual jar, so painting the back helps with that. The color of this jar is stunning, and wait till you see me apply this paper. So I am going to lay out exactly where I want it, and then I'm going to use liquid patina. I'm just going to apply some liquid patina down, and then I am going to lay the piece of rice paper, and then from the center, I'm going to smooth the center out and then work my way to both sides and then to the top and bottom, and just really make sure that there's no wrinkles. And I just love how the cone flowers are the same color as the jar. And this is going to be perfect for like outside on a patio, having some flowers in it, some fresh flowers, or even inside your home. You could have it on your kitchen table. You could paint a couple different jars. This one could be in the center, and then you could paint 2 additional ones and have them like in a crate. I think it would be absolutely stunning. After that, I want the finish to be the same over the entire jar. So what I decided to do was just apply a nice even coat of the liquid patina over the entire jar. Liquid patina has more of a matte finish, and Big Top has more of it's got like a semi-gloss. I decided I wanted to add a little tag hanger on here, so I'm going to paint the tag with weathered wood and just apply 1 even coat. From the last IOD release, this was by far my favorite stamp set. It's called Apothecary Labels. It comes with 4 different fonts and a bunch of different labels, and it is perfect for your small pieces. Unfortunately, because of the popularity, it's sold out, but I am hoping in June we are going to get it back in stock. So I am waiting for that. I save every little piece of the rice paper and the decoupage paper for different, mixed media applications. And I had this little chunk of Connie's rice paper that was just white. It actually was in the toss me pile. And I thought, how perfect. I'll use the white of the rice paper, and we are going to hand stamp on there grow, and we're going to decoupage that on the little tag and have it hanging off. Now when you're working with the small set of letters, a couple tips for you. Number 1, when you're done using them, make sure that they get back on the actual piece that they came off of. And then there's another piece that goes over the letters. Always put that over that, because let me tell you, these little letters can disappear so quickly. I had another set of stamps very similar, and I lost 1 letter and it kind of ruined the whole set. I'm using the IOD permanent ink. I laid out the small little letters on a thin mount, and then I inked them up, and I am going to just stamp on that white piece of paper. And then I am going to use that same technique with the water, and I am just going to go around that and then just pull the edges to make it look really rough and torn. After that, I'm going to take liquid patina and decoupage that on and let it dry, and it'll be ready to add to the jar. So here it is so far. I decided to add a bit of twine around the top, and this twine I pick up at my local Walmart. It's one of my favorites. It's just nice and chunky. I'm just going to wrap it around a couple times, tie a knot, and then I have another piece of twine that I'm going to stick through the hole on the tag, and then just attach it to the twine around the jar. For project 3, we are breaking out the Masterboard, and this is called Bird Masterboard, and it is full of so much yummy goodness here. Birds, fonts, oh my gosh, botanicals. It is by far one of my favorites. Now, my vision for this paper is that I thrifted this like ages ago, and it is just an old school mail contain, like where you hold mail, and I thought it would be perfect to upcycle with this. So I am going to take a chunk of the paper and put it on the front of both the mail slot holders. Before I do that though, I am going to paint the entire piece with a cast iron. And this is Fusion's one-step paint. And what that really means is that it has a built-in top coat. And if you haven't used Fusion's one-step before, it has a self-leveler in it, so very minimal brush strokes. And I also love using the Stahl Meester paintbrushes with this. And it just, I guess the best way to put it is having thin layers of paint, and like multiple coats is better than thick layers. And really this is very heavily pigmented, very similar to DIY paint. So the coverage is amazing. So really on this piece, I actually did one even coat over the entire piece. And honestly, you guys, this little tester from Fusion, there is so much paint in there. I could have did several other projects as well. So could I have painted an entire dresser? Absolutely not. But the coverage of this and the amount of paint you get in one of those little testers is phenomenal. Next, I'm using White Swan, and I am just going to paint the fronts of each of these pockets with White Swan. And that really is just to make that paper pop. Because it's raw like wood, if I would just go directly over with the decoupage paper, it would really not pop, and you don't necessarily have to put the white underneath. Depending on what look you're going for is when you want to add the white or just leave it all natural. I want it to pop, so I'm adding one even coat to both of these pockets. Now what I'm doing is figuring out what I want to cut off of this piece. I want to salvage as much of the paper as I possibly can for other projects. So what I'm doing is I always like to leave a little bit of an overhang just in case things shimmy or move while I'm applying the decoupage paper, that I have a little wiggle room. So I'm going to do that for both the top pocket and the bottom pocket. I pick out the two designs and then we're going to add them. I am using liquid patina, and this is definitely my decoupage medium. I love using with Royce's papers. I am starting with what I like to call a starter strip. So I apply a nice even coat, and the key here is you don't want your decoupage medium to be too thick, just a nice even coat. Then I'm going to take my misting bottle, I'm going to mist my paper and then smooth it out. And I do that for both of these sections. And then I work my way down. So after I get that starter strip on, I lift the paper up, add a little bit more liquid patina, and then smooth it on out. After that, I'm taking a piece of sandpaper and then I'm sanding away any of the excess. And then again, I go back in with the liquid patina and add an additional coat to give it a little bit added protection. Next, I'm going to use this stamp set called Farmhand, and we're going to add some wording. Initially, you guys, I wanted to put junk on top and then mail on the bottom because honestly, I think all mail I get is just a bunch of junk. But in the end, I decided just to add mail because not everyone may think the way I do about receiving mail. So I lay out my letters, and once I lay them all out, I realize that I want it right in the center. So I start moving the letters over a little and I line everything up just how I want it. I then take my thin mount and I line my thin mount up with the upper left-hand corner. That way when I pick the letters up, I know exactly where I'm going to lay the letters down. And once I pick it up, I'm going to use the white, mixing white, and it's going to look so good popping off of here. I flip the letters over and then I just take my ink pad and I ink up all the letters, and I just want to make sure I get a real nice even coverage. Once I do that, then I'm going to pick up the stamps again, and like I said, line it all up, and then once I go in, I'm just going to lay it down, and the key here is to just lightly rub over the all the letters. You just want to make sure you get good adhesion on all the letters. For project 4, I had a bit of in a pickle left over, the milk paint. So what I decided to do was I had this green Jello mold and I wasn't really digging the green. I wanted to really enhance it. So I thought, let's try it out, see what happens on the Jello mold. So I applied one even coat over the entire mold. I let it dry. I still had a little bit left, so I touched up in a few areas, and then once it was dry, I took my sandpaper and I sanded it. Here is where I'm going in with the sandpaper, and there were a couple areas when I sanded it chipped off, and in most of the areas it did not. So I actually had to rough it up on specific areas. So like on the raised edges, I just wanted a little bit of that other like underside green to pop through since some of the other areas chipped. And once that all happened and I was done with the sanding, I decided I wanted to add that dark oil wax like I did to the dresser. So you have to shake up the oil wax every time you use it. I just recommend giving it a good shake, and then I always just take an old chip brush and I apply just a little bit at a time to the chip brush, and then I go ahead and just smooth it all out. The milk paint like absorbs it. It's hard to explain, but then you want it to sit, like I said earlier, for about 10 minutes and really absorb and go into that milk paint, and then come back and wipe away the excess. So here I'm taking just a piece of paper towel and wiping away the excess. And you guys, doesn't this look so good? It's like rich and beautiful. I kind of want to keep it for myself because I like it so much. But it's amazing, just a little paint and a little bit of that dark oil wax completely changes the look and feel of this Jello mold. For project 5, do you guys remember when I went thrifting with Connie from the Painted Photographer? Well, I found this piece while I was out thrifting with her. The minute I saw it, I knew that I wanted to use it with this Roycycled decoupage paper. It was going to be absolutely perfect. So I am using the other half of the paper. I used the first portion of it on the dresser, and so I had this big chunk and it fit perfectly. I was not going to waste a lot. It just had a little bit of an overhang on each side, so it was a perfect fit. I'm going in with White Swan. Again, I really want this paper to pop, but I also want to cover this image as well. So I'm applying just one even coat of White Swan to the entire piece. I'm going to let it dry, and then we're going to come back and we're going to add the decoupage paper. What I do first is I want to really lay out exactly what part of the decoupage paper I want on this piece. And I definitely want to get the bird on there. I want to get most of that tree. So I'm just cutting off just a little bit on the top. Again, I want just a little overhang on each side, just in case something moves or shifts, that I have a little wiggle room to play with. I am using liquid patina from DIY, and I'm also using my misting bottle. Now with this piece, I am going to work in sections of 2, so I'm going to apply the liquid patina to 2 of the boards at a time, and the key is just a really nice even coat. Then I'm going to mist my paper and then smooth out the paper over the liquid patina. And by using the spray bottle, again, you're activating the fibers in the paper, and it really helps alleviate a lot of those wrinkles. Plus, by working in sections, you're doing the same thing. You have better control over this big chunk of paper if you get a starter strip going and then you work your way down. After it's completely dry, then I just take my piece of sandpaper and I remove the excess. And I always do this in a downward motion. If you did it the opposite way, you can risk ripping the paper right off of your project. After it's completely sanded off, then I go back over and add one more coat of liquid patina. I could have stopped there, but then I thought I wanted to add just a little bit of the weathered wood to the very edge of the entire painting. I think it will really ground it a little bit more. Plus, what I noticed is on the very edge, you could see just a little bit of that white swan, and I wanted to camouflage that. So I applied just one even coat of the weathered wood to the entire piece. Then I'm going to go back, I'm going to seal it with Big Top, because again, anytime you use DIY paint, you need to seal it. And then this project is complete. And what a transformation, you guys. This looks like a piece of artwork. For project 6, when I was thrifting at the Goodwill bins, I think, I found a bunch of these. I grabbed them all and I thought I could definitely upcycle them and transform them into something completely different than what they look like here. Probably could have put them in my booth as is, but I thought there was something that we could do bigger and better. After I removed the price tags and all of the faux leaves on top, I also removed the cording just so that I could paint it without getting it on that cord. I am using weathered wood from DIY, and I'm applying 2 even coats of weathered wood to the entire piece, letting them dry in between coats. Do you remember Connie's beautiful big piece of paper? This can be used multiple ways. Like I mentioned, you could get 8.5 by 11 beautiful frame and just put it directly in there. You could also get even a larger frame and start layering and matting it. What I have decided to do is actually cut it down. So I am using this Roycycled stencil, and I am lining it up exactly where I want to cut it out. And I am going to I first started with a pencil, and I should have gone in with maybe like a black marker or maybe a black pen, because the pencil, Connie had her Connie lines on here and they were almost the same color as the pencil. So it was very hard for me to see which lines were pencil lines and which lines were Connie lines. But the key here is when you lay down the stencil, you can trace the very outer edge of the stencil, and then that's what you cut out, and then you decoupage that down. So I didn't want you to sit through watching me cut it out. So here it is, all cut out. I always hold on to those extra pieces. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to paint the backside white swan. We are decoupaging it on that weathered wood sign, so we definitely want it to pop. So I'm just applying one even coat of white swan to the back, letting it dry, and then we're going to decoupage it on. Here it is, all set to get decoupage down. So I am using liquid patina, and I am going to apply a nice even layer of liquid patina onto the weathered wood sign. Then I'm going to lay down Connie's rice paper, and I'm going to start in the center, and I am going to start smoothing it out, and then I'm going to work my way over to the right and work my way over to the left. Now there is some lines in the sign, so what I do is I just take my fingernail and I kind of just rub it along there to really embed that rice paper into those grids. After that, what I decided to do was start with the white swan. So I lay down the stencil and I line it up with the outer edge of what I had cut out. And I am just using white swan. I want to make sure that, because I don't want the weathered wood to show at all, so I'm just adding a layer of the white swan first. Then I'm going to go in and I'm going to add a layer of the kissing booth. And then lastly, I am going to just add a little bit of the golden rule here and there just to really soften it up and make it pop. Lastly, I want to add just a word to this, and so I thought the apothecary label stamp set would be perfect because it has 4 different fonts. I picked the font that I thought would look the best, and I laid out all the letters. I just want to make sure exactly where I am going to stamp it or how it looks. And once I get all the letters laid out, I then pick it up with my thin mount, ink it up, stamp it, and then this project is complete. I just need to add that twine back in, and I think this is really cool. It could be a really fun door hanger. You could actually have it on a shelf. I just think it's absolutely beautiful. For project 7, I had a bunch of these rounds and they were just sitting around, and I thought how perfect to use the bird masterboard to create a beautiful sign. So I had a chunk of this left over, and I wanted to get some birds in the sign. I also wanted some butterflies. I wanted some of the stamps. You can see there's like a round stamp on the left-hand side. There's one on the right. So there was a lot in here, and I think that adding, putting, decoupaging the piece of paper down and then using that blessed on here, I think is going to make an absolutely stunning sign. So what I do first is I cut out exactly what I'm using, and I try to salvage as much as I can for future projects. I don't want to cut away too much because I want as much left over for any project that I want to complete in the future. The key is to line up your paper and have it positioned exactly how you want to decoupage it down and then flip it back. Now, I'm trying to do this and then my paper completely moves, so I realign it and then I flip it back. And I always recommend using a starter strip. So take some decoupage, which I use liquid patina as my decoupage medium, and take a little bit of that medium, lay it down, mist your paper to activate the fibers in your paper, and then lay that back down over the wet liquid patina and smooth it out with your paintbrush. That will help alleviate so many wrinkles and give you better control of your paper. After that, just work your way down and then set it aside, let it dry very thoroughly, and work on the rest of your project. While that's drying, I am using Prairie Sunset from Fusion, and I am going to apply one even coat of the Prairie Sunset over this entire piece. Now, I started off, you guys, with a very large brush, and I realized it was definitely a lot more difficult to get in between all the individual letters. Had I done this differently, I probably would have just gone in with a small brush and only painted the very top and not worried about all the details, like the edges. I think it would have been just fine if I would have just did the very front of each letter, but it was a little bit more work. I ended up getting a very fine-tipped paintbrush, and then I was able to get in between all the letters. Now that this portion is dry, I am in a downward motion, taking my sandpaper and sanding away all that excess, and I just go all the way around and I smooth it all out. I'm using Tight Bond, and I am going to glue the blessed down with Tight Bond. So just like I do with molds, I am just adding a little tiny bit of the Tight Bond to each of the letters, and then I'm going to take my finger and I'm going to rub the Tight Bond all over. The key is you don't want a lot of Type Bond oozing out, just like when you apply an IOD mold. You just want to feather it to the edges, because when you lay it down and you press and a ton of glue oozes out, that's what you're going to see when it dries. So I did have a couple areas where a little bit of glue oozed out a bit. Very easy though. I just took a Q-tip and I wiped away that, but you want to have as little cleanup as possible. After the blessed was down and dried, I looked at the sign and I felt like it needed a little something something. So I decided to use the twine again. I love adding twine to signs, and I thought if I wrapped it around a couple times, it would just give it a little bit more. I didn't know if I should add a hanger to it. I just felt like it was missing something. The other thought afterwards was maybe I should have painted the very edge, that same Prairie Sunset. But I tied this on, tied it into a knot, and then I decided to add a bit of ribbon. And so I found a piece of green ribbon and I added that, and I thought that added a little bit more. But in the comments, guys, what do you think I should have added to this? I was actually, when I laid down blessed, I was gonna say bless, but it was bless this nest, but not blessed this nest. So I thought about adding the letters. So I was trying to get a bit creative with this, and I still think it looks really good. I just feel like it might need a little bit more.
I hope you've enjoyed today's video and were completely inspired, even if you did not get the maker's box. Now, the July box, there are a couple available. So on June 27th, anyone on the wait list will have access to those few extra boxes. So in the comments or the description below, I will have the link to the wait list. So if you want to get on that, get on the wait list of the maker's box. And like I said, June 27th, which is in just a few days, I will open it up and I'll shoot you guys an email. If you don't get an email on June 27th, check your spam. It has been, I've heard some are going into spam and I don't know why. So definitely check your spam if you don't receive the email. I do send the emails out at 7 a.m. So just be prepared Central Time. For the subscribers of the Maker's Box, I did order extra papers. So what a bonus for you. I will have them available for subscribers on my website. I am shooting off an email on June 14th at 7 a.m. to all the subscribers with the links of each of the papers. That way you can order those, any extras that you may want, and they will be included in your July box. So if you order them, there is no shipping because I'm including them in the box. Just remember that you will not get them until you receive your July box. So that is super exciting, and that will be available to you guys every single month. Now, even if you didn't receive the Maker's Box or subscribe to the Maker's Box, don't worry. If you've wanted to try the colors that we used in today's video, I have created the June sample pack of colors. So you will be able to try a sample of weathered wood, kissing booth, cast iron, and the prairie sunset, along with in a pickle, and then you'll also get the little whisk, all in the sample pack. I will have it linked in the description below, and it will just take you right over to my website so you can order that as well. Now, next month, I am going to have another July unboxing video just like this. If you guys aren't a subscriber, continue to watch. I'd love to hear your feedback, what you guys thought of the papers, what you thought of the different paint colors I chose. I definitely want to hear what you thought of the projects as well. So yes, definitely in the comments, let me know. Now, I hope you've enjoyed today's video, and I just had a ton of fun creating the Maker's Box and creating all the different projects using the items that were made exclusively for this box. All right, well, you guys have yourselves a great day, and we will see you in the next one. Bye.